2025, two terrorist attacks in our country and two people connected to Fort Bragg. Incidentally, the guy who tried to kill President Trump at Mar-a-Lago was connected to Fort Bragg. Spent a lot of time there. It's not today, but tomorrow, our friend Michael Rourke, who's a retired Special Forces operative and an international security consultant, is in the high mountains of free America, and he is scheduled to join us in studio to talk about the attacks, what he sees as a consultant, and of course, I'm asking him about this guy's credibility as a Special Forces operative. What do we know about him? We'll get into this, but I want to talk about something that the FBI had better learn if they ever want credibility again. I know the street agents would like to have it, and it's not just DEI. It's something else. They need to understand how different the world is, and I don't think they get that. We'll talk about this with the help of Bulwark Capital Management at knowyourriskradio.com, and, of course, with the great help, the indispensable help of God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times through which God has decided we shall live. Meaning, of course, God intends for us to live through these times and therefore has specific expectations of us and also things he knows we can do. The FBI is an organization that had better understand something and get it very, very clearly. It is absolutely distrusted for perfectly good reasons. And they'd also better get this point that the times have changed significantly, that's ahead of them in this investigation, starting with what happened in Louisiana, New Orleans. Massive loss of life and injury. The New York Post got to the suspect's home in Houston an hour to several hours ahead of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They knocked on the door before the FBI. They had the house under surveillance before the FBI. Times have changed. And the FBI is distrusted by conservatives for incredibly good reasons. The FBI tried to institute a coup against a sitting president. The bosses of the FBI and retired security informants and agitators and people from our so-called intelligence services. The FBI had better learn that times have changed. It was on Twitter immediately following this attack that the videos began to surface of the Cybertruck, and the terrorists chose the wrong truck, didn't they? The makings of that truck and the stability of that truck probably saved countless lives, given that it contained the blast and drove the effect of the blast upward because the truck is so solidly built. In New Orleans, it was a different story. There was a flag on the back of the truck. This began to make its way through social media. One of the first priorities, it seems, of the FBI or someone in law enforcement, it appears, was to cover up that flag. Why? Now, as I cycled through this and processed on this and tried to get to the side of the agents on this, tried to get to the side of the government on this, it could be something as patriotic as some agents saying, hell no. Pardon me, heck no. I'm not going to give ISIS advertising. I'm not going to let them have the picture of Americans on our soil. It could be very patriotic, and we should have our hearts open to that. After all, these things are often used for fundraising by the terrorist groups to say, look what we did. There's our banner. Look what we accomplished. But the FBI had better learn something. The pictures were out. And within minutes after that, suddenly I started to see pictures appearing of the scene and videos of the scene where the flag had apparently been photoshopped out, removed, edited out. These sort of actions, I'm not saying the FBI did that. I don't know who did that. But these sort of actions draw into question the credibility of the FBI. This goes beyond the DEI. And let's start with DEI. The woman who is the police chief of New Orleans is about 82 years old. She was fired as the police chief of Oakland, and she later got a minor settlement. Her specialty is DEI, empathy, bias, victimhood. She trains the FBI in DEI, bias, victimhood. If you look at Oakland and what's become of Oakland, Oakland is worse than a third world country. There are entire areas of Oakland where you don't go unless you want to be robbed, beaten up, maybe killed. Ask the people who live there, people who used to live in the East Bay, anywhere. She's graduated up down to leading the police force in New Orleans. The FBI had better learn something, that times have changed. This lady's curriculum vitae was out online within about a half an hour. Our friend Chris Bray, great Substack, Tell Me How It Ends. He had her background. He had all her previous jobs. He had what people said about her in Oakland. Times have changed. You can't just throw anybody in front of a camera anymore, FBI. Times have changed. The digging into the background of this guy started to take form online. And within about an hour, we had his ID, we had his name, we had his pictures. Times have changed. You can't withhold this stuff anymore. They continue to try to hold and hold and hold. Now, they have a responsibility greater than citizen journalists on Twitter. They want to be right. I'm sure that the street agents want to be right. But let's go step by step through this in just a second, because one of the things we've talked about in this program is that incompetency is a brilliant place to hide nefarious intent. So let's go step by step through what we saw, and let's look at incompetency as places to hide ill intent, because once again, there's a ton of coincidences. Let's pause for a second and remember something. As all this is going on, there's families who have lost lives. We need to pray for that. And we also need to remember this, that there's families who go through struggles like these families are going to go through, and God carries them through it. My friend John, who runs Allen Soaps, when they found out that their son Allen was going to have massive structural concerns in his body, he's never going to be physically, quote, normal, and the doctors stepped up and said, hey, let us abort the baby. John and his wife said no. Doctors tried to convince him. This kid, this baby, this zygote, they might say, is never going to have a valuable life. He does have a valuable life. He invents soaps. He works to package them. He works in quality control, and he's got great joy in this. He works there, and he plays his Minecraft, and he contributes. His brother Ian now works there. Both boys really impacted by autism, Alan particularly so. They've made it through this storm. Alan's not supposed to be alive. He's supposed to be dead 3, 4, 5 years ago. He continues to defy the odds. 18 surgeries, and he's still making his soap, and he'd like you to try it. Go to allensoaps.com/Todd. You get 10% off all their products of soap made in America in small batches made by a family with 3 generations of soap making expertise, made all natural. It's allensoaps.com/Todd. So incompetency would be a fantastic place to hide ill intent. Let's go through and look at some of the coincidences. And right now, they're just coincidences. We've got the Fort Bragg connection, as we talked about. That's being discussed online. The FBI might want to get ahead of this, but then they'd be required to speak truth. There is something weird about Fort Bragg and so many weird connections to attempts like this. Las Vegas, New Orleans, Ryan Ruth, guy who made the attempt on President Trump's life at Mar-a-Lago, or intended to, by hiding in the bushes with a rifle. He and his trips to Ukraine. He and his interactions with NGOs sponsored by the federal government. Lots of coincidences. Now, Bourbon Street had been protected by these incredible metal barriers. They pop up out of the road. They're impenetrable. If you've watched the video of the attack, the terrorist simply drove his white truck past a police car that was blocking an intersection, through one portion of looked like a convenience store, and then headed down the road to people. CNN talked with a witness about this.
Did you see, when you were looking down from the balcony, did you see the truck? Did you see the suspect?
Oh, he had been gone. That's what I was telling other news sources. Like, we have these hydraulic steel barriers from past events. Last Mardi Gras, this happened to an extent, maybe not terrorism, but still people getting hit in mass population with vehicles. Those barricades were not up, period. They had the flimsy orange ones that you could just push over with your finger. We actually thought it was kind of odd because usually when you get to Bourbon Street, you can turn your back to Canal and not worry about anything. You can just walk the street, especially on New Year's, and there were still vehicles coming after 8 p.m. And then, I mean, the fact that they never raised them, that's how this guy was able to get down Bourbon Street. So
you could watch the event. You could watch the terrorist drive past an intersection, police car blocking off the intersection, and then he simply pulls through a parking lot, guns it, and starts mowing people down, taking lives, innocent lives. And may God comfort these families. It's really super important when you do what I do and you do what you do. I'm producing media, you're listening to it or watching it. For us to pause. Remember that for us, this is a news event. For other people, it's the changing of their lives forever and not for the better. In the case of people who've lost loved ones. So that's a massive coincidence, a massive bit of failure. Why did the killer choose New Orleans? I mean, they had all these barriers. Did he know they were being taken down? Did someone inform him of that? Of course, I hope these are questions that the FBI is looking into, but I doubt it. Because the police chief is an FBI consultant, teaching them the important things about DEI and bias and empathy. So why would they indict her? An 80-something-year-old woman who really doesn't have any business leading a police force. Then we have this. We have the mayor of New Orleans who stepped up and said what?
Good morning. First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here.
This is not a terrorist event.
That, by the way, now is an FBI agent who, as she speaks, is breaking FBI rules.
What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not.
That was a spokesperson, a special agent for the FBI, contradicting the mayor. Now, you can call this a minor thing, and in some ways it is. The moment I saw that lady speaking, I said, wait a minute, she's got a nose ring. To be clear, I have family members, young family members who have nose rings. But the second I saw that, I thought, that's not allowed by the FBI. Guess what? It's not allowed by the FBI. You are not on official duty to have a nose ring. It's a minor thing, but it speaks to a culture at the FBI, a culture that's been degraded because the rules are suggestions. And of course, we know this. The FBI doesn't understand any of this. They don't understand that times have changed. They don't understand that her saying it's not a terrorist attack and then talking about the improvised explosive devices. Us predicting and finding out, oh, it's going to be someone with an Islamic name. And we did find that out. But it was not an Islamic name in Las Vegas. According to news reports and images of his LinkedIn profiles, which are just now starting to come out, the guy who undertook to kill people outside of President Trump's hotel in Las Vegas was an American, a former Special Forces operative, who, of course, blew up a Cybertruck, a Tesla, outside of a Trump hotel.
That source also revealed what was inside the truck, explosives that included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel, and authorities believe that that was connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver. We're also hearing this same sentiment from Elon Musk, who tweeted out that they have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and or a bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck.
In other words, an IED. And now we, of course, know that both of these vehicles were rented through the same company, a company that is like Airbnb for cars. We knew all of this before the FBI told us. The FBI had better figure this out. Times have changed, and if they ever want credibility again, they better begin to act with immediate transparency, immediately. Transparency is utterly vital. It's utterly vital for today's society because people no longer like anything that reeks of pretense. This is why Kamala Harris couldn't make any traction, because there is no Kamala Harris. There's nothing about her that's genuine because she's not capable of being genuine. My friend Zach Abraham, the Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, the guy you hear and or see on our show once a week or usually once a week with an occasional vacation like this past week, he is the guy you see and hear on this program. He is not any different when you hang out with him. And you can go have these social events with him. He does his free live webinars and he gives speeches. In fact, I'm just going to ask him. I found out I'm going to Seattle in February, and I'm going to ask him about doing a private event there. If you talk to him about your finances or politics or faith, same guy, utterly transparent. He's transparent about the losses his family suffered, economic losses. And guys in the finance business, they don't normally talk about that, but Zach does. And praise God, it was several decades ago. But he was being transparent with his bosses when he was a young guy in finance. The housing market's going to crash, and he was laughed at. See, he'd always been a guy motivated by risk management. But when that happened, and his wife and he had to give back their house all those decades ago, he made himself a promise when they started their own firm. The number one thing would be risk management. If 2 terrorist attacks on the first day of 2025 don't convince you that we are headed into an incredibly risky time, that the deep state and our enemies are going to triple and quadruple down their efforts to make things hard for America, I don't know what will. I really suggest that this is a signal to you to make sure you take Zach up on his free offer to do a review of your portfolios and your retirement goals. He'll do this for free with no obligation. And if you, at that end of that call or video conference or in-person meeting, if you look at that and say, you know what, I don't need you. Say that to Zach and he'll say, God bless you, go get her done. And if you're in good stead and you're doing a good job, guess what? Zach might be the first to stop you and say, hey, can I stop you? You don't need me. You guys are set up so well. However, if your portfolio is not being actively managed, which actually can reduce risk and volatility, and you are not set up to reach your retirement goals, he's going to tell you in loving, straight, kind words and suggest that you let him do what he does. Here's how to take advantage of this free offer. Go to knowyourriskradio.com. That's knowyourriskradio.com, or call him at 866-779-RISK. That's 866-779-RISK, or knowyourriskradio.com. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24-378. It pales in comparison to 2 terrorist attacks on the first day of 2025. But we have to understand something, as we've been talking about Elon Musk, and we need to understand something about his role in government. He has a very pronounced point of view on the H-1B visa program, very pronounced, or HB1 visa program. This was a program that was designed to bring in the top 1/10 of 1% to 1% of workers in the globe. Now, here's the theory. Just like an NFL team would want to poach a great quarterback or a skill position player or a really important left tackle or edge rusher, we want to be able to poach great scientists, coders, intellectuals, entrepreneurs, maybe academics even. We want to be able to do that for our economy. I mean, this is something our military has done forever. Remember, they brought in a bunch of Nazis who developed rocket programs and let them start over here. Hey, no harm, no foul. I don't like that part either. So this program that they created, the H-1B, was designed for that. What happens when big business and big government become one? Who always loses? We do. I want to talk about how this program is being destroyed and perverted. In my judgment, it should be absolutely ended. But we should also recognize this. Elon Musk does not like free speech, not even a little bit. He likes it when it's super convenient for him. But this past week showed us something. During the debate over these visas, the HB1 visa program, Elon Musk threatened Americans. Now, I don't mean that he threatened them physically or that he's going to go blow something up. He doesn't need to do that with all his money. But he said to us who do not like this program, blank yourself in the face. The blank being a sexual phrase. Blank yourself in the face. He said, I will go to war about this, the likes of which you've never seen. That's threatening us because he wants to continue to hire people at substandard wages because that's what's being done. It's worse than that on the free speech front. There are 3 or 4 very well-known commentators. Laura Loomer. I don't know Laura. I think she's a bomb thrower. I've never met her. She's incredibly effective, very popular. She should have access to the platform. Very quickly, the people at Twitter stole her blue check mark and sent notes to her subscribers, people paying for her content, and said Laura has disabled subscriptions. Laura says she never did that. They took away her ability to go pay for premium again. This, again, according to Laura Loomer. And she has the screenshots to show this. In other words, they wiped out her Twitter business. Now, Twitter has apparently said that this is because she had violated advertising standards. It's their opinion that she was doxing people by talking about their actions in HB1 visa and where their offices were located and where their companies did business. She was accused apparently of doxing people. That's public record. That's not doxing. Doxing is where you make an effort to find out where someone lives and produce it for people with ill intent. That's doxing. Elijah Schaffer has had quite a career in conservative media. He'd be one, I'd probably not like the fact that I said conservative media because he calls Republicans cons for a large part, and I call them shiny shoes, professional Republicans. There are a lot of them who are cons. He also took the populist side against HB1 visas, just like Laura Loomer did. He posted a tweet about what's happened to him since. And I've watched this happen. I went through this. I'm still shadow banned. I watched it happen. Alex is producing the show, sat there the day after the election as my Twitter followers went from something like 100,000 down to 30,000. Those weren't 70,000 bots. That was punishment. We all know it. Here's what Elijah Schaffer posted. I went from 10 million impressions a day down about 95% in reach. I had some comments that ratioed some high-tech or high-profile tech bros. I believe that's what did it. But I survived Twitter 1.0 and am never deterred by censorship by the oligarchs in power. And he quotes the Bible. So he did go down that far. I've seen Elijah. I've followed him for years. He used to work with or for Glenn Beck. And that's what's happened to him. He took the wrong side in the debate. And Elon Musk's Twitter has gone around the clock, shutting people like Elijah Schaffer down. Elon Musk is not a hero. He's an opportunist who's done some things to help us. He helped get President Trump elected. God bless him. He helped move the debate forward about the politics of Silicon Valley. God bless him. He shined a light on the AI issues and how government is helping to pick and choose winners and losers, which opened up the door to Mark Andreessen doing it, which opened up the door to people who helped fund PayPal talking about this, and the Meta companies and their financial movements, digital currency apps, Citibank people. Lots been done through Elon Musk, but he's an opportunist. He wants this visa program so bad he's willing to threaten us, and he's willing to shut down the free speech of others. Ashley St. Clair is not a bomb thrower. She's a mom, very successful in, I would say, evangelical media. She wrote, "This is how censorship starts in every platform for every avenue throughout history. They deplatform the, quote, worst people so that people do not speak out because they don't want to be associated with them. Accounts are being suspended without reason, ability to purchase premium removed, subscribers removed. If you're going to demonetize them, whatever. But to remove subscribers or individuals choosing to support someone privately, very bad precedent." It is. It's a horrible precedent. Elon Musk is not a hero. Let's not be confused. Some heroic things have been done through him. God may be using him. I mean, God's using everybody to some degree. But he is no hero, particularly on the topic of free speech. He hates free speech that embarrasses him. That means he hates free speech. The way that the H-1B visa program is being used is so incredibly perverse that it's almost hard to believe. I'm going to share with you a couple of jobs that have been recruited through this program. No matter how bad you think it is, I'm about to tell you it's worse. Over the holidays, I had a great conversation with a guy who has moved his job, his acts of, I guess you could say service, and it is service, from the United States down to Mexico. Now, I had this conversation with some friends of mine, and this is the stem cell organization, Renew.Healthcare. Over the weekend, I was having another conversation with a friend of mine who broke the world record for squat many times over, and man, has he paid a price. He and I continue to have these talks. He continues to want to get down to Mexico. And he took me aside. He goes, look, Todd, I did some research. They have offices in Scottsdale. I go, right. He goes, okay, so but you keep saying it's a Mexico-based company. No, they do the treatments in Mexico. They have to have a corporate entity down there. And again, he said to me, okay, this is where I get confused because my surgeons and doctors are up here telling me they use stem cells. Okay, let me try to put this debate to bed for forever. In Mexico at Renew.Healthcare, the stem cells are alive. They're cultured in a lab after they take the core stem cells from placebas and umbilical cords. They pay for the birthing process of those mothers. They observe the health of the mothers and the babies during birth and for a long while after birth before they will ever use the stem cells. They still pay for the births. They take the very best of the stem cells, they get them to Mexico very quickly, and then they culture them, so there's more of them, living, ready to go, packed with building capabilities, but nothing assigned to build, meaning they can build anything in the human body. Muscle, tendon, they can build cartilage. They fight inflammation. They destroy inflammation. That's the stem cells in Mexico. The stem cells in the United States almost always come from your own body. They usually come from bone marrow. So however old you are, that's how old your stem cells are. And they go through a process of lysing before they're put in your body. Basically, they're spun around in a centrifuge, which makes them even less effective. They do fight inflammation, but that's really just about it. The difference is profound. If you want the real healing process of stem cells that I've done, my friends have done, and countless now viewers and or listeners of this program have done, go to Renew.Healthcare. It's RENUE.Healthcare. Tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family, and they will tell you if they can help you or not, and they'll even tell you the percentage chance of success. That's Renew.Healthcare. So they hired a stripper. No, there was a company that needed a stripper, but they couldn't find anyone to take their clothes off here for money. So they decided to go outside America to hire a stripper. Now, in this case, they used the E3 visa, special occupation workers from Australia. Oh, huge difference. Sorry. So they used that visa program to hire a stripper. They're using the H-1B program to hire interns. Companies, architectural firms can't find any Americans who are willing to intern for $60,000 to $67,000 a year as an intern? You can be in college. This can be a graduate school course for which you're paid. So instead, they're hiring people from outside the country for this. And you can go on and on and on through these roles that people are looking at to hire outside of these programs. There's a great piece that goes into vivid detail on this. One of my favorite Substack writers is a guy named Jordan Chattel. And he writes, proponents of the H-1B program argue it's an essential opportunity to import workers with underrepresented occupational skills into America. Detractors say it serves to undermine and displace the American worker. So he did some research on this. He went through the history of the HB1 or H-1B. He went through what it was intended to be, and then he got down to some specifics. There's one country that dominates these visas, India. 72.6% of successful applicants come from India. Why? Because they flooded the zone. India works with placement services in the United States, recruiters, huge companies. They submit sometimes 3 or 4 applications for the same person. They've been accused of and found to be committing fraud but there's never any punishment. The next biggest country in this is China, with 12.5% of successful applicants. Now, understand, those are very, very big countries with lots of people, but even adjusting for that, they're still wildly overrepresented in this program. Then in America, there are staffing firms, and this is what they specialize in. They also flood the zone with applicants. Sometimes the applicants are authorized, they're given their visas, but they don't want them. It's likely that they never themselves applied for them, that the companies were doing the applications to block other companies from winning these visas. And incidentally, Jordan found that on average, H-1B visa recipients are paid far less than immigrants who legally enter our country and then get jobs. Here's why. The staffing services take a rake. So here's what they do. One company in particular has the game so set up. He started as a staffing company and started bringing people in. He took a rake on their wages, so a percentage of what they earn. Sometimes these people are only getting 60% of what the companies are paying. So the staffing company takes 40% every month. Then he started buying apartment buildings around the company headquarters. And he started to place the people in these apartment buildings. You have to live here to work here. So now they're paying off his buildings using what's left over from their paychecks, from which he already took a 40% rake. Then he hired subsidiary companies so that he could file even more applications for these visas. LLCs nested under LLCs, nested under trusts. If you look back through the paperwork, it's one dude. This is all in the show notes. You can go look at it and look at the display and the images. This is a broken system, and it should be done away with. If only we had President Trump on record talking about this, but wait, we do. I am deeply concerned that President Trump is being persuaded by Elon Musk to change his opinion on this. I'll remind you in a second what President Trump said about this during the debates in 2016. Now, maybe he has new information, but it would be very, very difficult to have any information that is contrary to the fact that this program has become an utter scam. It's an invasion. It should be done away with. Every individual a company wants to bring in on a waiver like this should be looked at individually. We should go back to the top 0.1% to 1%, and there's ways to ascertain this. Patents, coding ability, inventions, companies created, IQ tests. There's a whole bunch of ways to ascertain that we're getting the top 0.1% to 1% of people for these waivers, being allowed to come into our country and to take jobs that would be otherwise taken from Americans. Because Americans work hard for what they have. My friend Tim Cruikshank has worked extremely hard to build the Bone Frog Coffee Company into what it's become. If you've made any form of New Year's resolution, and a lot of people do that, then can I just suggest this to you? Have you struggled with depression? Have you struggled with an inability to get out of bed? Okay, let me just offer this to you. You might be using a ton of things to fight that. God forbid you're using a bunch of pharma. Please don't do that. Coffee is an incredible antidepressant for me. My experience with it has been it is more effective than anything else. It's also an incredible antioxidant. It helps keep you regular, and it's really very, very natural. There are people in developing countries who to this day chew the leaves and the beans, etc. We are designed to appreciate caffeine. So why not have it taste good? Why not get it from a company that shares your values? Every bag of Bone Frog coffee or K-Cup says on it, God, Country, Team. Everything has the Bone Frog logo, which is the insignia of the fallen Navy SEAL. Every time you take a sip of this, if you paid for the coffee, you're contributing 10% of proceeds to support the families of fallen Navy SEALs through the Navy SEAL Foundation. And you are working with a guy, Tim Cruikshank, who is my personal friend, a friend of the show, one of the first money into the show, and a guy, if you ever get the opportunity to meet, you're going to find out he's the least SEAL-like SEAL you're ever going to meet, even though he did 3 deployments on our behalf. Quiet, unassuming, but when he needs to be, incredibly powerful. Go to bonefrogcoffee.com/Todd. You'll get 10% off all the products at Bone Frog. You'll get 15% off subscription coffee. 10% off your first purchase, 15% off subscription coffee. It's bonefrogcoffee.com/Todd. One of the ways this has been sold, this H-1B program, is through, you guessed it, DEI. It's helping the BIPOCs. There's a change on that front, and it's not a great change. Number of Americans across age strata and demographic strata and their views on whether companies should be required to seek non-white applicants first. In other words, to be required to be racist. Let's go back and listen to a guy named Donald John Trump talking about the H-1B program in 2016.
The H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
So these middlemen, they continue to take advantage of this program, are just that. That's all they do is they move money around. There's a link in the show notes to describing these middlemen. You yourself can go look up their companies. You yourself can look at the data. And we'll belabor it on the screen. Do your own research, as they say. Oh, wait, don't. I forgot that's white supremacy. Doing your own research is one of the biggest problems in society, according to companies like the Associated Press. So there was a great survey done. Should companies always prioritize hiring racial minorities before hiring white people? This goes across agreement by generation and race. White people. Gen Z, 24% say yes. Millennials, 22%. Gen X, 14%. And boomers, 6%. Black people. In the Gen Z black people, 51% of Gen Z black people say, yeah, companies should be forced to hire minorities first, so-called minorities, before hiring white people. 47% in millennials say yes, 33% in Gen X, 26% of boomers. Hispanics, it's 47% yes, that's Gen Z. 40% of millennials say, yeah, you should be forced to hire so-called minorities over so-called white people. 21% of Gen X and 11% of boomers. Why do we use the so-called thing? Because white's not a race. Black's not a race. They're colors. They don't mean race. They mean color. They mean division. This isn't an look to try to get into in-depth hiring of people. There's this. The visa scandal has also affected education because there's a version of this that's bringing in woke students into our academics, bringing in woke academics into our academics from around the world. Now, this is a conservative, a Christian conservative talking to Christian conservatives. Elon Musk is not a free speech hero. He's wrong on this program. It has to be destroyed because it can't be reformed. It needs to be destroyed and a new program created where we check every single applicant and give them a test. Are you truly the top 1/10 of 1% to 1%? These are ascertainable things. Don Lemon has a different take on this. I'm sure you appreciate this because, as you know, Don Lemon is deeply concerned about our country.
Finding out, you dumb idiots. Now you're just figuring this out. You're so stupid and you deserve it. You deserve it because you're so dumb. Jim, it's hypocrisy. So go with me here. Yes, I am gloating over your stupidity.
This is about the debate over the visa program. Don Lemon says that we're stupid for debating it.
And how you were taken. I'm cackling in Kamala, says in Shanta. You have been co-opted because you're in a cult and you don't even realize it because you have stupid MAGA brain and you don't get it. How stupid and dumb are you? And I'm just going to I can't wait to go.
He is eloquent. He should have a TV show. He's made some great points.
Do this. Okay. So I'm going to read this again. So Krishnan's appointment triggered an anti-Indian backlash on social media, particularly given his past advocacy for increasing green cards and immigration broadly. Oh, no, immigration. We can't do the immigration because it's hot in here, guys. Sorry. Woo! Thank you.
How did he get fired from CNN? I mean, this is so good. The points, the intellect, the data.
We can't do the immigration because, the immigration, it triggers some people. You know what they're saying about the anti-immigrant stuff, right? Who's it to say that one of the jobs you might be seeking won't be one of those white jobs? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You know, he's a good-looking man. He'd do a lot better if someone put a teleprompter up in front of him and said, hey, Don, read this. Oh, that's right. That was his job, teleprompter reader. We began the program talking today about what happened in Louisiana, what was done there, what was done in Las Vegas, the connections to Fort Bragg, the further connections to Fort Bragg with Ryan Ruth, who tried to kill President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. We started with that. And prayers for the families that are going through this and recognition that to them, it's not a news story. They're probably not even watching the news. To them, it's torture. Their lives have inexorably changed and not for the better. So let's wrap the show that way. The visa program is annoying. It's corrupt, but we are told to expect corruption. After all, Americans decided to seek human kings. God said this is what will happen when you make human beings kings rather than using me as your king, your ultimate king. But let's pause again and remember that today is the second day that there are people who no longer have sons or daughters or dads or friends. Let's pause and pray that the Holy Spirit will bring the peace of the Lord, which transcends all understanding, upon them and their families, even as he's not going to bring those people back to life, not in this life, but if they knew the Lord in the next life. Have you made your decision? Do you know where you're going when you die? I hope you'll make that decision. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind, and please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.